We go and find a seat.
Some younger ones.
Well, are you all comfortable? Welcome again. I'm sorry I was late. Help yourself to coffee and juice, and I'm bringing the traditional Greek welcome drink. Okay. Take your time.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, I already had one. Thank you.
The place about the farm, which I have it from my grandparents. My grandparents asked all the villagers at their time, do you prefer me to wear the machine?
Απλά δεν το έχω τώρα εδώ, γι' αυτό σε
Okay,
ρώτησα.
okay. Can you all hear me? Well, so back to my grandparents' time, all the villagers make their living from small farms like this. In Greece, we don't have big farms, big properties, the most of us. We have small farms like this. So, at my grandparents' time, all the villagers had to produce themselves their food from those small places, and few products for the market for little money, not for much money. But it was okay for them, the little money they earned, because their life was much simpler than ours today. For example, my grandmother had a closet of this size, and it was enough for the whole family. Today, not even for the shoes of one, a closet of this size. Though my grandfather trying to earn more money, he was the first one in the whole area who produced eggs. And he built this building for the chickens. That was a chicken coop. And here I have proofs, in case you don't believe me. I will come close to everybody. This is a picture 72, 73 years ago in front of this building. And on the picture are my grandparents, the child is my mother, and my grandfather brother. And the chickens. My grandfather had 5,000 hens. And he produced 5,000 eggs every day.
Wow.
The only problem was that in the area nobody needed eggs. We are at the countryside. So everybody had their own chickens and they had their own eggs. Still today I have 5 hens and they have 5 eggs every day. So my grandfather used to sell the eggs in Athens, the capital of Greece, by train. The railway station is in a distance of about half a mile away from here. So my grandfather put the eggs on wheelbarrows, moved them to the railway station, and from there the eggs traveled in Athens every day. In every village, one or two families had beehives, and they provided the other villagers with the honey of the year. And my family was one of those families here in ancient Olympia. My great-grandmother, my grandmother's mother, she was the first beekeeper I know in my family. I know that they had beehives earlier because my great-grandmother took the beehives from her family, but the first one I've ever heard stories about as a beekeeper was her, my great-grandmother. My grandmother, her daughter, took the beehives after her. My mother also kept a few beehives in our backyard, mostly producing the honey for our house. And after them, I became a professional beekeeper, and I'm a professional almost for 25 years now. And immediately I'm going to tell you my story about the bees, their life, and their products. The bees live on the honeycombs. I'm coming close to everybody so you can take a closer look. Oh, you can touch it if you like, but gently. The bees make the honeycombs with wax they produce from their bodies. Between the black and yellow part of their bodies, which is not black and yellow in reality. The bees are black and yellow in cartoons. In reality, they are black and orange, or mostly black and brown.
I used to be a beekeeper.
Okay, so at the end of my presentation, you will tell me your opinion, okay? Okay, so the bees are black and orange, or mostly black and brown, and between the strips of their bodies, the bees produce small pieces of wax. They don't leave gaps, they use all the space they have available. Also, they make a very, very strong construction. A frame like this can hold half a gallon of honey. But at the same time, it's a fragile one, construction. The bees need something to protect their honeycombs from the sun. The sun can melt them, from the rain. So, since the beginning of times, in order to protect their honeycombs, the bees used to find holes in nature. Holes inside rocks, holes in trees, like this. I don't know if everybody can see it. And they used to go inside these holes, inside the trees, starting building their honeycombs there, and growing up their colonies there. The first people used to do what the bears still do today. We used to visit the trees, take the honeycombs, and run fast to avoid and we had the honey this way. But as we did with all the other animals, we wanted the bees close to our houses, under our control. So we started building beehives, houses for the bees. This one is my grandmother's one, old beehive, made of a kind of bamboo and a kind of clay. But ancient beehives, the first beehives, were beehives of the same idea with my grandmother's old beehive. For example, we have found ancient beehives made of clay all over the world. This one is from Athens, but we have found all over the world ancient beehives made of clay. Μπαμπά, δεν έχει νερό. The ancient beehives worked exactly the same way with my grandmother's old beehive. The first beehives were an imitation of nature. This is an imitation of a hole in a tree. So, we started building beehives like this, collect bees from nature, put them inside, and the bees started building their honeycombs. They started with a small piece like this, gluing it at the top, here. And then add another one next to it, and another one, and make them bigger. And they used to fill all the space with honeycombs. When they finished, the image was this. This is the image of a basket full with honeycombs. I will explain you what the image shows. The same image would be inside the trees if we could take a look inside the trees. this is the closest to the natural way for the bees to work. Okay. Give me a minute and I will explain you what the image shows. So, it would be like this, placed at the ground, like this. So, there are layers of honeycombs hanging from the top to the bottom with a specific gap between them so the bees can pass through and work on the honeycombs. So the bees would enter from the bottom, climb on the honeycombs and work on the honeycombs. In these beehives, when the honey was ready, we were visiting them with a knife, cutting almost the half of the honeycombs, take them to our houses, press them, squeeze them, and we had the honey this way. But this way we had to destroy almost the half of their houses. Though the bees made them again from the beginning, still it was big loss. That was the reason it was big revolution in beekeeping when we found the modern beehives, the boxes. The beehives you see all over the world now. This is part of a modern beehive. This is how it looks inside a modern beehive. And these beehives were revolutionary because they have the frames, the movable parts, which allowed us, when the honey is ready, to remove them, to take out the honey without breaking the honeycombs. We spin them. I'm going to show you my machine later and I'll explain you exactly how we do that. The important thing to keep now is that we take out the honey without breaking the honeycombs, and then we can return them back. And the bees can use them again and again many times. So, with the modern beehives, the time and the energy the bees needed in old beehives to rebuild their honeycombs, now they spend it to collect more honey. With the modern beehives, we've increased the world honey production dramatically. And with the frame. Trying to avoid the stinks, we use smoke. We put smoke inside our beehives. In a way, we calm the bees down and we can work without many stings. Only few. Sometimes we cannot avoid them completely. This is the tool we used to use more than 4,000 years ago in the area. You saw it at the museum. To put smoke inside our beehives. We found this one here in the ruins of ancient Olympia, near the temple of Hera. It is older than the temple. And how we used to use it. We used to take dry grass, fire it, put it inside from the big hole, grab it like this and blow the smoke inside our beehives. And this is the modern one, the one we use today. And today, 4,000 years later, we do exactly the same thing. We take dry grass, we fire it, we put it inside, and we blew the smoke like this. We have just changed the way we blew the smoke. Not very big progress for 4,000 years, but when it works, we keep it. Later, I have a photo gallery with images of beekeeping from ancient times until today. There, I have the image of a rock painting from Zimbabwe, Africa, 10,000 years ago. It's the first image we have of a human using smoke to collect the honey. So, at least for 10,000 years, we use the same techniques to collect the honey. Now, I'm going to tell you some words about the products of the bees. The bees collect 3 things from nature, and they also produce 3 other things from their bodies. The first thing the bees collect from nature is nectar, the juice from flowers and trees. And here, inside their chest, the bees have a special sac. They put nectar inside, they add elements from their bodies, and they make the honey inside their chest. After this procedure, the bees extract the most of the water, the most of the humidity from the honey. The honey is still liquid, but with not much water in it. When the water is out, then we say that the honey is ready. It is okay. This honey is a natural preservative. We say that it can live forever. For example, we have found honey in Egypt, in pyramids, about 5,000 years old. It is not tasty anymore, the old honey, and it doesn't have nutrition value anymore. Also, it has become hard like rock. If we warm it, it will become liquid again. The important thing is that we won't get sick if we eat it. It does never spoil. We have never found bad honey in the world, never. Only humidity, the extra water destroys honey. A honey with more water than it should inside becomes sour like vinegar in some days and we cannot eat it. You can tell. The bees use honey to feed themselves, it's their food. And the bees store the honey inside the honeycombs so they can have food at the winter when they cannot find food in nature. That's the reason we cannot take all the honey from a beehive. We have to leave enough food for the bees back to survive at the winter. The second thing the bees collect from nature is pollen from the flowers, which the bees use to feed their babies. What they do? Every beehive has one mother, the queen bee. The queen is a unique insect, the only one inside the beehive who has the ability to lay eggs. She leaves one egg at the bottom of every cell. This egg 3 days later breaks and gives us a very, very small larva, a small baby. The worker bees go and feed this baby with honey and pollen. Pollen is a multivitamin and protein product. The pollen is for the bees what is the milk for us. So the bees feed the baby with honey and pollen for some days, and after that they close the cell with wax and they leave the baby with the food inside the sealed cell for some more days. In the meantime, the baby becomes a new worker bee. When she's ready, she opens the cell herself and comes out. This way we have new worker bees, and that's how the bees use the pollen. We collect the pollen and we eat it as a multivitamin and protein product to boost our bodies. The third thing the bees collect is not one thing. The bees collect hundreds of elements, enzymes and other elements from the plants. The sources they use are the resins, the liquids that come from the plants. The bees also use the pollen from some flowers. They even extract small amounts of essential oils from other plants, and they mix all those things with some of the wax they produce from their bodies, and they make propolis. So, propolis is wax mixed with hundreds of elements the bees collect from nature. Propolis is a very, very strong natural antiseptic and light antibiotic. The bees use it for many purposes, but the most important reason the bees use propolis is to keep the health of the beehive. The bees cover everything is not wax, all the wooden parts, the bees cover them with propolis, and this way they sterilize the beehive. Also, if they have a sick part, they close it, they sealed it with propolis, and this way they don't leave the sick part to harm the rest of the beehive. The honey is ready when all the water is out, when the humidity is out. The bees know when it is ready. They fill the cells and they close them with wax. This way I can tell that the honey is ready when it is sealed. I remove the frames from the beehives. I come here and with a warm knife I remove the cover, I open the cells and I put the frames here. I push the button and that goes around with great speed. And as it turns, the centrifugal power forces the honey to leave the cells drop by drop. Tick, 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 thousands of drops go to the wall of the barrel. And then the gravity does the rest. The honey goes down, there is a tap at the bottom. I just put a big jar there and I just collect the honey. That's simple.
How long does that cycle take?
Some minutes, but we don't do that daily or weekly. Me, I do it twice a year, spring and fall. So I collect hundreds of frames. I extract the honey during the night usually, and next day I return the frames back. So it takes some hours to extract the honey.
The mama, I got her, she's like, I'm gonna come get you.
Did they hiss?
Yeah, so if I have anything,
You know, like Greek families, when someone, the beloved, dies, they arrange for a grave to be built, and they put all the money, like all the sons or daughters, you know, or brothers. They put money together in order to build the monument for the deceased one. And then from time to time, let's say,
Yep. Take us to the dungeon.
I will tell you what is it. Just take a seat, don't drink yet, we're going to drink all together, we're going to make it talk. Welcome my dear students, please take a seat wherever you like.
Okay.
Please take a seat. You are not the Greek students, they have to write the test the next day at school, they have to pay attention to me, no problem. I'll just give you an idea about the techniques we use here. So before we start, I have to welcome you to this workshop. And my name is Anastasia. Anastasia in Greek language means resurrection. And with my students and my daughters, we revive the ancient technique about the ceramic making. Elena, my cousin, and Elena, my sister, with their team, they revived the ancient techniques of the jewelry making of Mycenaean period. So before we start the presentation, I have to tell you that you have some little numbers, don't lose them. No matter if you buy something or not, all of you will participate in the draw we're going to have on the bus. Because this month we celebrate 45 years in this building. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. I was 11 years old. How these 45 years have passed, I don't know. And we are the fourth generation ceramic making, the second generation in jewelry making, and we always make a toast this month that we celebrate. So this that you have in your hands is a mastic liquor. Mastication, the word mastication, comes out of this tree. It's a tree that grows only in Chios Island, in the southern part of the island, north and east of the Aegean Sea. This is a tree like the pine tree that gives white resin.
They used to take this resin and smash it and chew it. It was the first chewing gum. That's why the word mastication comes out of the tree of mastic, mastica in Greek language. So liquor, cosmetics, sweets, etc. So when we're going to have a toast in Greece, first of all we say yamas. And then we say opa. Yes. And we have to start dancing and break something. Please don't do it in here, everything's fragile. Now starts the presentation. Please, 10 minutes, you have to be quiet. This what I'm going to explain you right now is a course of 6 months for the professional potters. I try to make it simple. Don't hesitate to interrupt me if something is not clear. I can tell you more about it. So how the ancient Mycenaeans, 6,000 years before Christ, have started to create ceramic vessels. They used to create little camps nearby the rivers or the springs. And every night they used to have a fire in order to cook, in order to be warm. Every morning, in the place that the fire was, where the soil was humid, something solid was created around the fire. So they found out that the water, the earth, the soil, and the fire create something solid, and they created the first coarse vessels for everyday use, handmade with a hand-boiled technique in order to carry water, to cook food, and to store food. Next smart question, how they made that waterproof? They found out that when they have to create the vessel, and that has to be dried first, they applied a slip of clay that came from the same area, and the second slip of clay on the solid vessel makes the vessel waterproof during the fire process, because the second slip of clay plays the role of the glaze, goes and covers the pores, the little holes of the ceramic vessel, and makes that waterproof. Of course, they didn't have any kind of kilns. That's why they used to open a large pit on the ground, fill it with branches of wood, and gather on the top all the ceramic vessels with the open part onto the fire in order to have a better firing. But the open fire outside the kiln goes to 300 degrees Celsius. The Greek clays need 900 to 950 degrees Celsius. So all of them, every 2-3 weeks, they had to replace them. They used to break easily. That's why, 3rd millennium before Christ, they found a way how to close the ceramics in kilns like that. You see on the top the big hole that allows the oxygen to enter the kiln, so the step of the oxidation. And of course, in the bottom, you see how the wood supported the fire. By that period, they have invented also a kind of a primordial wheel. The first wheel in the Greek land, 3rd millennium before Christ, was before the millstone, a round stone where they used to smash on with smaller round stones the grains of the wheat in order to create the flour. So they used to put a base of wood. The one artist had to sit down and give the movement to the wheel, and the other on the top was trying to create the vessel at the same time. Now, another smart question. How we know all these details and how we know how the wheels were? Everything was depicted on the ceramic vessels. The evolution of the ceramic art, the names of the heroes, the names of the gods, goddesses, and everything was depicted on the vessels. That's why these vessels are so important for the Greek history, classic archaeology, and social anthropology. And here you see, of course, this primordial wheel. It's here, it's depicted on a vessel. But they needed to create waterproof vessels, and they needed to create also different colors. How they had to create the different colors? They didn't have any paints or any colors. So they had 2 types of vessels. The one type of vessel, 1500 before Christ, was something like this. That was a colorful vessel, beautiful, in order to make that offer to the temples, full of drops of essential oils, not for everyday use, they were for decoration. And how they created the colors back then? They used to smash semi-precious stones. Mix them up with other ingredients and apply them on the vessel. So you can imagine how much they cost, these vessels. They were very, very expensive, and only a rich man could afford a vessel like that. That's why the rich people used to offer to the temples all these vessels. How they created the colors. The blue color was the lapis lazuli, the favorite stone of Clytemnestra, queen of Mycenae. The green colors were green agates. The orange color was a little bit easier for them because it was a herb extract of crocus saffron. And the red color, you cannot imagine how they created the red color. They used to have a special seashell that gave the red color, and even through the centuries after Christ, during the Byzantine Empire, all the emperors have to wear red clothes dyed with this special seashell. It was so expensive, only the kings could afford it. And now today, what do we create? Miniatures of these perfume holders. We make them, of course, with the smallest possible hole because we have to put inside drops of essential oils. And if you're not an expert, how you can tell if it's hand-painted or not? You have to touch the vessel, here the figure, and you have to feel this graffito technique. It's engraved. So when you feel it on, you see that it's not a decal or a stencil because it's not smooth. It's something that you feel it's engraved. Do you understand, my dear? It's okay? Very well. Now, how they created the different colors on the waterproof vessels and how they created the different colors on the vessels in the period that they had to apply the slips of clay. If we imagine that the clay comes from the natural erosion of rocks, each soil contains different minerals. Each slip of clay will give a different color during the fine process into the kiln. I don't know your program. I don't know if you have seen already the Canal of Corinth. You're going to visit the Canal of Corinth? Yes? Okay. I beg your pardon? You haven't visited yet the place there. Okay. When you're going to see the canal, I want you to see that all the soil there is yellowish. So the Corinthian clay before and after firing is yellowish. Here you see a perfume holder, a perfume bottle. They used to close with wax and sell it to the whole Mediterranean Sea. The Corinthian 6th century before Christ. The local Mycenaean clay is gray like this, hence orange red after the firing process. The clay that comes from the Cyclades Islands, where we have a lot of white marbles, contains only kaolin and iron oxides, turns totally white like this during the fire process. The clay that comes from the area of Attica, the area around Athens is called Attica, is this red clay rich in iron oxides. So during the firing process, the kiln is in the garden where your bus has stopped to the left. During the firing process, with the presence or the absence of the oxygen, in one and only fire, the clay changes naturally inside the kiln. So the gray parts will turn orange-red, the extra slip of clay will turn black. How that happens is a little bit complicated. The only thing you have to remember is that the presence or the absence of the oxygen changes the color, and also depends on what type of clay we have applied on the vessel. And of course, the result of this technique are waterproof vessels. How you can tell? You just hit it. It sounds like a metal. It's waterproof without being glazed. And when you see here the black is shiny and the red is matte, it's because the black has a lot of iron oxides, that's why it's shiny. And of course you can touch here, you can see that this is also engraved, so you can tell it's not a decal, it's hand painted, and you see the real thing that we see in the museum. But the top of the Greek art is not the black figure. After 100 years, they managed to create the famous red figure art. Can you tell why they needed 100 years from the black figure to go to the red figure? Because here we have to apply to the whole vessel, but the figure, the extra slip of clay, and this gray clay, we have to make it more concentrated in order to have a relief and a flat painting. So the curly hair of Dionysus, the grapes, the curly hair of the musicians are made with more concentrated clay. So same sound, only here you have to feel the relief and the flat painting. This is the real thing we see in the museum, and we cannot touch, it's closed inside there. Special. together. So this is the real thing, this is the ancient method. Now, why we insist on making ceramics with this method, and why we continue making all these ceramic vessels with that technique? It doesn't matter if we sell them or not, we continue because we don't have to lose this technique. And that's why, because we remain now 3 artists in whole Greece that we know how we can build up a vessel up to 2 meters high in different layers. That's why we have to continue making all these big vessels that you see around you. All these red vessels that you see also in the place of where we have the students is the production of the last autumn. So here we have to paint them after 15th of June that the students will graduate. We have to paint them all during the summertime. So late spring and early autumn we make the forms, and the rest of the year we have to paint them. But even in this size, all the vessels are made in different parts. That means here is a base. Here, if you touch it, you can feel here is the different layer, another layer, so we make them all in different parts. Why? The Greek clays are very soft. During the first step, if we try to make them thinner, we just lose the shape, and this is the only way how we can build up a vessel. We make it in different parts. So outside in the garden, there is a wheel that was invented 20 times before Christ. It's wooden, and everybody had to kick with the feet, but the speed was controlled, and is controlled today by the feet of the same potter, the same artist that creates the vessel as well. So here you see the Greek traditional wheel of today. Thank God it works with electricity, so my students don't run away at once. It's an honor for all the Greek potters to know how they have to kick in a fancy type of wheel, but it's very tiring for the production. So here we have another advantage. We can change the size of the wheel on the top because you see different sizes in there, metallic wheel. We can make them as large as we need, no higher than 40-45 centimeters. When you see something like this, you can tell where the layers are, but if you can touch it, you can touch from the bottom to the upper part, it's sliding like a wave. Why? Because when we create the vessels, we give the form. We do the trimming during the second step. Third step, we have to measure and fit one piece onto the other. Between the layers, we put a slip of clay instead of glue, the slip of clay all around on the lips of the parts of the vessel we want to build up. And then around them, we put, like a ring to embrace both pieces, a piece of clay. But this dry body of the vessel absorbs some of the extra clay with the water. In some part, it's thicker. So we have to work before the fine process with the sandpaper. When it's thinner and we try so hard, we make a hole. So this imperfection that is slightly like a wave, or you can see where the layers are, is the proof that this is handmade. There is no other way. So here you see, I will make you the upper part of a crater. Crater was a vessel where they used to mix up the water with the wine. Have to be wide open like this. Let's make it a little bit higher. The lower part and the handles, we have to make them separately. So during the first step, we have to use these little tools in order to give the shape to the vessel. This is exactly what we have to do to the whole surface in order to do the trimming.
Makes it look easy.
It's easy when you learn. It's okay.
So easy.
It's easy when you learn. And also the first step is very fast. After you have to be very patient because you have to touch the vessel for 3-4 times more in order to do the trimming, in order to measure and fit one piece onto the other. So this is the upper part of the crater. Even if I make it so thick, you have to see that this is very, very smooth. So we just bring the shape if we try to make it thinner. How we know about the tools, you have to ask me now. How we know about the tools?
How do we know about the
Because we have found in the excavation of Mycenae the house of the potter, the house of the goldsmith, and the house of the perfume maker. All the tools are in the National Archaeological Museum. Now, before I show you the symbols of the Greek art and the workmanship of the other team here, I have to ask you if you are already familiar with the cup of justice. The cup of Pythagoras. Not yet, I will show you. I show that to all of my students because Pythagoras was a famous mathematician and philosopher, but he had a school of students. And he wanted, you remember Pythagoras, the theorem, yes, mathematician. He wanted to see who was the greatest student, like a life test, that didn't belong to his school. This cup works up to this line. More than the line, we'll open the siphon if we overfill the cup, because here is a hollow tube with a hole down here that communicates with the bottom. We are punished if we want too much. So my husband holds here the hole with his finger, and he says, Anastasia, I can drink as much as I want Ouzo from this cup. Say, don't try it with Ouzo. After the third cup, the line is different. So this was not in only not to drink so much, because if you consider that the wine was watered down with 3 parts of water, a cup like that, with a cup like that, nobody can get drunk. But he wanted to show them the Greek philosophy, nothing in excess, metronariston, everything in moderation, midden adam. That's why the Greek students were punished by losing all the watered down wine during the wine breaks. They didn't have coffee breaks in those days. So you see, below the line or up to the line, we can use it as a common cup. Nothing happens if we're not greedy. Below the line or up to the line, we are not greedy, we keep in moderation. When we're going to pass the limits, we want too much, we're going to lose it all. It's all gone from the bottom. So the Greek students were very embarrassed when Pythagoras knew who was the greatest student that didn't belong to his school. So this is not an embarrassing joke, it's a life lesson that it works with the hydrostatic pressure principle of communicating vessels in physics. So up to the line we can drink, down here is the hole, through the hole goes up the liquid and it's all gone from the bottom. So it's easy when you know that the hole is down.
Arcadian Nemea. In Nemea was that story with Hercules killing the lion. It was the lion of Nemea, and Hercules used the lion's skin for protection and for making himself famous. So this is the main road leading to Nafplio.
Εμείς πάμε από πού, ευθεία δεν πάμε από εδώ. Και στρίβουμε λίγο πιο μετά αριστερά.
Αριστερά, να βαίνουμε πάνω για το Παλαμίδι.
Ο Παλαμίδης. So,
this street doesn't look like something very interesting, but at the end of it we'll be turning left. If you look to the right, you may get a glimpse of the Palamidi castle. It has about 1,000 stairs for the ones who want to train. Maybe they can arrange to get on top of the Palamidi fortress. The easy thing to remember about Palamidi fortress is it's open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and the entrance is how many euros? Yeah. So on our right is the Palamidi fortress. I think I forgot my English. I started speaking French. Fortress du Palamidi. So this is a very nice little town, Nafplio. You see like the palm trees. You remember where they're from? California. Yes, you feel like home. So we turn left and head for the distillery. It's a nice place to live actually, Nafplio. I was considering this idea because you have these little houses like 2-story, 3-story buildings at the most, and you can go anywhere on foot, and the sea is nearby and there are mountains nearby, the food is good. there are people coming in, like also tourism and Greeks and foreigners. So there is always some movement, and you can meet people, talk about places. I'm sure you will enjoy the presentation and the varieties. Yannis is really passionate. The distiller is passionate about what he's doing, and it's a good thing that there are people that keep the tradition alive, because we are at this AI age that we never know what's coming next. So I don't know, I like to be conservative in a way for some things. You don't. It's like this is like a train, you know, you go.
Welcome to the distillery. Do you all come from the States? Not from the same state, eh?
No, different.
Different.
And we have a couple people from Australia.
In Australia. Oh,
Yes.
all right, all right. So welcome everyone. Welcome to Karonis Distillery. Karonis is the name of the family. My name is Yannis Karonis, fifth generation owner together with the rest of the family. We started in 1869 here in Nafplio. What we produce? The number one drink, it's Ouzo. It's an alcoholic drink based on an aromatic plant, anise. We also produce tsipuro. Those two are the most popular drinks for the Greeks. So, tsipuro, it is based on the distillation of grapes. And then we also produce some liqueurs. The tour starts here. It's a small space. It's the small museum of the distillery. We have kept many things from the past. I want to show you a few of them. And then we move to the next building. It's the production. There we have chairs for everyone to sit, and I'm going to explain how we make the drinks. And finally, some tasting, of course. Let me start with a few words about the place, Nafplio, a small town. It's a small town but with a lot of history. After Greece became independent, a long time ago, 200 years before, we had the Greek Revolution. And after a long time that we were occupied from the Venetians, the Bavarians, the Ottomans, Greece became independent again, around 1820s. For the first 3 years, when Greece became independent, capital of Greece, the first capital, was Nafplio. And then everything moved to Athens. From that time, we have a very rare book inside that vitrine. So I will show you where everything is, and then everyone can have a look. Right? That book, it's an original book. It was printed in 1833. You can read that here in the front page. And it has the first laws ever published by a free, independent Greek government. Why we have it? Because it says with smaller letters, Nafplio, capital of Greece. So it was important for the locals to remember that. Nafplio, at that time, it was a big port, like saying New York, I don't know, It was a big commercial port for the standards of Greece, and it was a nice place to start a business, to build your factory, because the only method of transportation was with ships. So if you wanted to sell your products, you needed to be near the sea. That's why Yannis Karonis, he's the man on the left there, he was the founder. And he chose Nafplio because the family was living near here, up in the mountains. Yannis was a moonshiner. Okay. And that was his distill machine. He was producing tsipuro, distilling the grapes up there in the mountains for the needs of the village there that he was living. And he said, why don't I go to Nafplio and move my small distillery in front of the port, because the port was every day very busy. Many people were gathered around because of the ships. He did that in 1869, and his idea was good. He started selling lot of his bottles and his drink, and then he tells to his younger brother, the other man on the right side there, Vasilis. In American it's Bill, Vasilis. Most of the Greeks that went to the States to find better luck, and they were named Vasilis. Right after they went to the States, they turned it to Bill. This is so Vasilis, the younger brother, Yanis told him, "Come, brother, here with me in Nafplio, and together we can make a bigger distillery. But before that, go and study," he told him. And Vasilis went to France and learned many more modern methods and new techniques, and returning back, they were able to produce also brandy, wine, liqueurs, and in 1881 they built our first big factory. There's in a photo here, marked with the number 1, the first Karonis distillery, one of the first 5 modern distilleries of Greece. The machines, the equipment they needed to have in that factory, the two brothers found and searched in other countries. In Greece we didn't have yet that kind of industry, and that explains why you can see machines that they say made in Switzerland, the filling machine. The small one, it was to seal the cups, came from Italy. And our first big distill machine came from Paris, from France. And we still have the invoice here when we bought it. It says Paris 1881, Karonis Brothers, and how much did it cost, and all the details. That's how we've started. The first time we won prizes for our products. That happened in Athens in 1889. These two here are the first prizes, and we went to Athens in 1889 to participate in the first ever Greek commercial exhibition with the name Olympic exhibition. It was dedicated in the idea of having again, after a long time, the ancient athletic games, the first modern Olympic games that we had in Athens a little bit after, in 1896. All the products that won a prize in the Athens exhibition in 1889, we sent samples of our bottles of our products to participate in the big worldwide exhibition in Paris. We still have a carte postale from that time. That exhibition in Paris, for that exhibition, the symbol of that exhibition was the Eiffel Tower. It was the first time ever for everyone to see that metal construction. You know, in the beginning, not even the locals there in Paris liked it. They wanted to remove it. And they said, okay, let's keep it for 10, 20 years and then we remove. Never happened. Over here we have some bottles of our brandy, very rare bottles that are full and sealed. The oldest stock we have, you can read the year, it's 1938 and 1950. We have many bottles of all the range of our products, but the two bottles over there on your left, the two bottles that are empty, but for us are the most valuable because they have the first labels of the distillery, dated in 1870 and 1880. And these are the proof that the company exists from that time. And exactly near the bottles, there's a small green paper. This is a receipt when we paid to buy those labels from a printing company in Paris, because that time the two brothers found in Paris the most modern machines to print on paper in good quality. In the same printing company in Paris that you can read on that piece of paper, the first Greek post stamps were made for Greece, and that happened for 10 years until the same technology came to Athens. Let me show you the safety box here. It's older than the company. Okay, let me stand here because I want to open it for you also. The family bought it in 1850. It came from Marseille. Marseille is a big city, a port in South France, in the Mediterranean. And in the ancient time, it began to exist as a city from Greeks, as a Greek colony. We always had relations because of the trade, and always the ships were going there to sell things, to buy things. So it was a marine type safety box. In the past, you can imagine the access to the bank was not so easy. It was one special day of every month that people were going to make a deposit or anything else. But in the meanwhile, they needed to have a safe like that, smaller or bigger, to keep whatever was valuable. Documents, money, and sometimes the valuable thing was the food. Okay, it has 3 keys. You need to have the 3 keys to open the door. If the partners were 3, each one can have a key and they need to be present to open that. Here it's my grandfather, he was the 3rd generation of the distillery. Behind him is the safe. After him we said, it's an antique, let's stop using it. Okay, but it works really good, totally functional. We leave the keys always on the door because we don't want to risk the possibility someone to come at night to steal and destroy to open it, you know. It's so easy to open and find that it's empty. This is it. I'm ending with something that has an American origin, and that is the first truck. It's in that photo in the middle. We still have the papers, the license. It was a Ford, you can read it, a Ford. That was a military truck. And during the Second World War, many trucks like that were abandoned and damaged. But after the end of the war, some technicians in Athens, they collect them and repair them and sell them for the trade as used. For us and for many other Greek companies, it was the first time ever to buy a truck. 1950s, around there. Why? Because at that time we start having big roads to drive a truck, because the trucks existed, of course. It was the first for us. We used it for a long time, for more than 40 years, 45 years. Unfortunately, we sold it, and now the man who owns it, it's very surprising that it's still functionable. I know that he's using it in the fields, not in the roads, but it's still working.
Wow.
Okay, please take your time, have a look at the machine in the next room. Back there we have storage. We use 4 distilled machines. The one you see here is the special one that we produce Ouzo. And the other one, exactly behind that wall, there's a bigger one that we use to make sicuro. Always when we produce alcoholic drinks, the machines must be made out of copper. Because it's the only material that does not affect with the alcohol. When we have high temperatures and alcohol, it must be copper. Otherwise, if we use stainless steel, in every distillation, a small trace of the metal will pass in the drink. And if we drink that, we start having problems. So it must be copper. In any distillery, if you ever go for whiskey, for vodka, for tequila, you will notice that the machines are made of copper. Let me start by explaining the sicuro production. Alternative names for that drink, it's grappa, raki, arak. Every country is using a different word for about the same drink. In Greece is sicuro. Every year around September, it's that at the time that the grapes are ready and we collect them. In the past, before the modern technology and the automatic machines, people used to press the grapes with their feet, inside a special pool, pressing and pressing. We were collecting the liquid to make wine. But what was left on our feet, it's a mash from the skin and the flesh of the fruit. This is the material we're going to keep to make the drink. So we collect all that mash of the grapes and we keep it inside the tank. And we wait for about 1 week, 10 days. During those days, there is an alcoholic fermentation inside that tank. Practically, that means that the sugar of the fruit is turning to alcohol. After those 10 days, we take that mash of the grapes and we fill them inside the distilled machine. We start heating the machine, and after about 30 minutes, everything is boiling inside. When the temperature goes up to 172 Fahrenheit, at that point, at that exact point of temperature, the alcohol of the fruit is evaporated before anything else, before water. So vapors of alcohol are going up inside here. They are taking up with them all the aromas of the fruit as well. And all together, they are passing through the main tube, and finally all those vapors are coming inside that cylinder. It's the cooler, we call that part. Inside that cylinder, there is a copper coil tube that goes like that. All the vapors are passing through that tube. But at the same time, we fill with cold water the cylinder. The cold water surrounds that tube. And because of the difference of the temperature between cold and hot, the hot vapors are becoming liquid again. And that liquid is falling down where we collect it from the exit inside the tank. That is the tsipuro. It's the alcoholic drink that the origin of the alcohol is the grapes. And all the aroma, of course, the flavor, comes from the fruit. Typically, it's a digestive drink. How one tsipuro, ours, is different to any other one, in North Greece, for example. It's exactly how the wines are different. If we distill different variety grapes, this is how the aromas are different. Different variety, different aromas. Let's go back in time around the 1850s, 1860s in Greece. Many producers, also our ancestors, they start having some new ideas how to make a different version of that traditional drink. And what they did, it was to add inside the machine some more spices to make a flavored version of that tsipuro. The one thing that they liked most to add, it was seeds of anise and seeds of fennel. These two are aromatic plants that belong in the same family, and they are very common not only in Greece but everywhere around the Mediterranean Sea. It's the climate ideal. Very well known from the ancient time. People always were consuming them like tea. It's good for stomach. It relaxes the stomach aches. So at that time in Greece, 1850s, that was the new idea, to add anise inside the machine with the grapes and create that flavored new drink. Everybody liked a lot that idea, and they start asking more and more bottles of that drink. Many producers, also our ancestors, they were selling also those drinks to other countries. The most popular destination to export any kind of product from Greece, it was Marseille, the French city in the Mediterranean. And every day ships were leaving from Greece to go there, to Marseille. We used to have some kind of boxes made of wood and put inside our bottles and writing two words on those boxes as an information for the ships and the people who worked in the port. Where does that box go? We used to write these two words, Ouzo Massalia. That was Latin language, it was the international language back then, and it is really easy what it means. Ouzo means use. Take that box, Massalia, Marseille, the French port. So it was an information for the people who work on the ships, in which ship that box goes. But the Greeks, behind the port, in the tavernas, in the cafeterias, they knew what was inside there. They couldn't read in Latin, of course. They were able to spell the three letters without knowing what it means. Ouzo, they said. Ouzo. And one after the other, start asking in the taverna, one glass of Ouzo. You know which I mean, they said. And that's the story we have, how the name Ouzo came up. I have that story from my grandfather, that he had it from his grandfather. It was that time that we start using that word in our label, on our labels. For in the Greek language, when we hear Ouzo, this is how we write it, 4 letters. It's the same sound. So that's the name, that's the story about Ouzo. Ouzo, it's not the digestive, it's the opposite, it's an aperitif. because of the anise and how it works when we consume, we like a lot having the ouzo before eating. We go to a restaurant and we order a main plate, but while waiting for the preparation, we say, brings us one ouzo and some meze. Meze is the Greek word for tapas. A small plate with different things that we like, and we enjoy a small bite, and then we zip some ouzo, and it can be just one ouzo. We don't need to continue with many more. If you don't like it. The Greeks sometimes we say, if it's weekend and we don't work the next day, let's go for ouzos. And there we mean, let's go to a taverna, relax, start talking, and never order a main plate. We have one ouzo, things in the middle, many things, and then one more ouzo, a second one, and more things in the middle. But slowly, not like in the movies. That's the idea how we consume the ouzo. How to prepare a glass is different from person to person. Okay, in the tastings, maybe we serve the ouzo neat, but that is not the way that the Greeks are having it in the tavernas. Usually, we mix it with cold water, and when we do that, it gets a milky color. Responsible for that reaction, it's the essential oil of the anise and the fennel. Now, you may ask how your ouzo is different to another producer's ouzo. And there comes a secret. Every ouzo is having a secret recipe. What that means. After many kilos, big quantity of seeds of anise that we have, every producer is having some more ideas of using some more spices and herbs, but in smaller quantity. We never tell in the presentations what else we use for our ouzos, obviously, but we always want to mention some possible choices. It's nice for you to know what else can be inside the ouzo. This is a very classic choice. It has the shape of a star anise, we call it. It's very rich in anise flavor, but it's not a Mediterranean product. It comes imported from Asia, from Vietnam, from India, from China. It's the climate there idea. For that, we can use some for our ouzo. Coriander, it's a nice pairing. Ginger, cardamom. What we use in the two ouzos, we produce two different. But in both of them, we use not a lot, but some zest from the oranges. The skin from the fruit. Here we are very famous in the region for all Greece for the production of citrus fruits. If you travel around with the bus, if you notice, everywhere around it's orange trees, lemon trees, and of course olive trees, like everywhere in South Greece. So these are some of the ingredients that we can have as secondary choices in the secret recipe for ouzo. The ouzo is not a drink that can be aged. We don't keep it for years in barrels. It's not like whiskey. It's the opposite. We want to sell our ouzo the same year of the production. That was the ciclo. That was the ouzo. After the two spirits that are dry and strong in alcohol, 80 proof, you can dry our liqueurs. We have for you 3 different liqueurs. The first one is the most traditional for the Greeks. It is called mastika liqueur. The basic ingredient for that liqueur, it's an unusual ingredient. It's a resin. It's a resin that comes out from that specific tree. What is really unusual with that? The trees, they are called Pistacia lentiscus. Difficult to remember. We call them mastic trees. Those trees are very easy to find everywhere around Mediterranean. Here, in Turkey, in Italy, in Spain, in North Africa, everywhere. But for thousands of years now, there is only one Greek island, and only there, the trees, every September, they give the resin. That island, it is called Chios. It's in North Aegean. The scientist says it's the microclimate the reason why. Only there and nowhere else the trees are giving the resin from inside the wood. In all the other places of the world, the trees are growing, they never give a drop. That makes mastic a very expensive ingredient and exceptional. We use it in many different ways. We use it in medicines. We use it in products of beauty. It's good for skin. We use it in food, in drinks. Talking about drinks, the last 300 years at least, the most traditional liqueur is the mastica liqueur. Why we call it mastica? If you collect a piece of that ingredient from the tree, you put it in your mouth, and after some effort, you realize that you can masticate it. It becomes white like a chewing gum. After the mastica liqueur, please try also our lemon liqueur, made from Greek lemons of the place of our region, and finally almond liqueur. The liqueurs are not that strong like the Ouzo and the Tsiporo. They are 40 proof and 50 proof. And they are sweet because we use sugar.
Which one you have?
Lemon and almond.
The almond is like amaretto without the caramel. What is this?
I'll try the lemon.
Yes.
The first here is the classic,
Yeah.
the white lemon.
You understand?
All right. Okay. Come on! Oompa! Oompa!
Which llama? Which one is my This one? Just over there. Yes.
Let me get out of the way.